few
my
times.
God.
So
No.
I'm like 2.5 hours down the tube sometimes when we're doing a show, and I'm like, uh-oh, I think I forgot to hit record.
Oh
We're not
no.
redoing this.
I
So
did a
our
whole Royal Rumble review this year, John, and I did not hit record. So,
man, I'm telling you.
yeah.
So, Vicky, is there anything that you that you want to hit on any like certain topics? Any things you don't like to talk about? Just so I always like to just go over ground rules before with everybody, just so I know what to talk about, what they like, what they don't want to talk about.
No, I'm pretty much an open book. I have about 30 minutes.
Okay,
'Cause I just have some stuff going on, but
that's great.
yeah, just to talk about my podcast and wrestling. Any questions y'all have, I'd love to answer them. And
Beautiful.
yeah, let's have fun with this.
All right, Vicky, I'm just gonna do a quick intro, and then we'll get rolling. Okay.
Okay.
All right, we'll go in 3, 2, and 1. All right, this is going to be a combined show today. It is Wrestling with Reality and Rad Turtles. The two wrestling flagship shows on the Reality Check Podcast Network are here today. And I'm telling you, I've been excited about this for a long time. That just one of my all-time favorites. I have to say it. Her husband is probably my top 3 all-time favorites too. I just am such a fan. My family is not into wrestling like I do, and they love her. Everybody loves her. She's just so awesome and inspiring. Such a wonderful human being. I just got to put her over right from the start. And Rad Rob and I are here, and we're going to welcome the wonderful Vickie Guerrero. Vickie, thank you so much for coming on Wrestling with Reality and Rad Turtles Wrestling today.
Excuse me.
Oh,
here we go.
I love it.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
Oh my gosh, it's such a pleasure. Vickie, I swear, I mean this when I say this, and I want to say right off the bat, we were talking offline, congratulations, you just graduated college. I know you got your diploma, I know you graduated a bit ago. Man, what an inspiration. You are killing it in life, just busting your butt. Congratulations.
Thank you. I didn't know what I was signing up for when I wanted to go to school, and yay, let's be a student. And let's, it was some hard work, but I'm really happy the journey's over. And I tell everyone I will never buy another notebook again in my life.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. Well, once again, thank you so much. Congratulations for your time. Thank you so much again for it. I know you've got so much going on. So let's get right into it here because I know you've got about 30 minutes and I don't want to hold you over or anything. And maybe we could do a part 2 another day in the near future because I know you got so much going on. I'll start it off. What a wild journey it is. Everybody knows, the stories, the background of it with everything. Eddie Guerrero to me is just the epitome of just wrestling and what it is. I could watch Eddie Guerrero matches morning, noon, and night as a wrestling fan. He's one of my all-time favorites. Easily top 3. To be honest with you, I'll probably have to say he's right behind Hulk Hogan to me. As probably my second, definitely my number 2, I would have to say. Just amazing. Everybody knows the backstory. I don't want to rehash that part of it, but you get in the wrestling business. How does this come about, Vickie? How did this wild journey start for you? Because, man, you kill it. You are one of the greatest heels of all time, probably. So, I mean, I just have to say it. I mean, how did you get involved and get back into the wrestling business, like to the level that you did in the WWE?
Gosh, it was just a big surprise and a fluke. I mean, if anybody wanted to think if there's a starting point, I did some work with Eddie with the Dominic child custody, storyline. And I got to work with Eddie there, and it was just a small job that was not a big deal. Let's go have some fun. And then, it was over with. But WWE is the one who called me after Eddie had passed about a year later and said, you want to come do some work for us? And I thought, sure, maybe a month or 2, nothing too long, and ended up being 10 years. And
wow,
maybe it's just watching Eddie for so many years that, I just kept watching. And of course, we always watch the shows, and growing up, I hated wrestling. I had 4 younger brothers, and that was beyond my scope. I was like, oh, wrestling, there's a bunch of guys running around, but lo and behold, I married into it, and I fell in love with the whole business and the industry and the people in it. So it's been a big family.
That's awesome. I mean, that's really just tremendous right there. Now, I know there's so many highlights there. You have to be one of the top heels in the past probably 2 decades, I would have to say. When Vickie Guerrero came out and gave an excuse me, the heat that was drawn to that.
Nuclear
heat. How did that come about? Did you create that gimmick with the excuse me? How did it kind of come out there?
The excuse me came about by me forgetting my promo one night. Vince had changed my promo about 4 or 5 times within the last hour before we went live. And it was really scary because, you get to one promo and I memorize it. I'm very thorough about it. So an hour before the show, I'm like, I got this. Let's go do this. And they start bringing these changes. And, mentally, I start kind of losing my mind a little bit. I'm like, oh my God, like it just kept changing all the storylines, the characters. And Teddy Long was pushing me in the wheelchair and he was in Gorilla with me. And he kept watching promos come and everything just kept changing. He goes, "You're going to screw this up, playa, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, looks like tonight's going to be the night, playa." But so when on stage, I did forget my lines and I kind of just summed it up really quick. And the crowd was just so hateful to me. And the fans are very smart. You can't underestimate them. And so, they're saying, "You forgot your lines." And inside I'm going, "You are so right. Like you're right on." And I just started yelling, "Excuse me," because it got so loud and just to kind of retaliate back at them. And they got louder, and the writers loved it. And so each night they kept trying it. And, gosh, 14 years later, it's still wanted, when people book me, and who would have thought?
Seriously. I mean,
something little like that. I mean, that's just, you never know what's going to get over in the wrestling business. And just something like that just comes out of the blue. Like, like Stone Cold's wife mentioned your soup's going to get cold and he thought Stone Cold. Like, you never know, right? You never know what's going to get over. It's amazing.
Yeah. The great thing is that I get to take that with me, because when WWE creates certain trademarks or characters, they couldn't take my name and they couldn't take "excuse me." So I've been very fortunate to take that with me to, Comic Cons. People want to pay for me to do a video to yell at them. And, just I get to do some merchandise with the "excuse me." So it's been a blessing for that to happen.
Absolutely. Now, Rob, I'll let you go on one because I could ask Vickie a million questions, and I want to get as many as we get in here and share the experience.
How was Teddy Long to work with? I mean, I've met him once. He was a sweetheart to me, but I've never really heard anybody say a bad thing about Teddy Long.
I never had a bad day with him. I mean, we both would get frustrated with different things going on, but he was like a mentor to me, such a professional. And, he's had a legacy for, gosh, years, so he brought a lot of knowledge to me and taught me a lot. And he helped me a lot with, making a better promo and working the camera and helped me just to calm down out there. And he's the one who probably taught me the most, saying, be yourself, be your character. Don't be what they're writing on the script. Make whatever they may write, turn that into what Vickie Guerrero would say and feel. And ever since he told me that, I got to relax a lot and just be comfortable with my own character and enjoy it. So when I get to work with him, it's such a fun night. And it's just, he's so funny and but professional and serious, and he's a smart ass, and he's a great friend.
That's awesome. I mean, you had a great cast to work with, especially the angle with Edge. Did you enjoy the stuff you did with Adam?
I loved Adam so much. I got to do some stuff with him, on his podcast, and we became, we've been good friends for so long. And he was another one that kind of guided me under his wing and taught me a lot of the wrestling moves, what to look for when it came to me cheating or being in a spot that they needed me for. And I was really nervous. I was honest with the guys I worked with because I was like, "Hey guys, I never did this. I've never been in a ring." And they just, gave me so much love and support. And I got to learn, I learned as I went along, and I got faster and quicker at things. And I fell in love with what I was doing out there. And Adam is just, oh my gosh, I was just think that I was this fan who got to work with this cute guy that I've had a crush on for years, because he was the rocker, Canadian, rated R superstar. And just to be able to be a part of that, and with La Familia too, with my nephew Chavo and, Kurt and Ryder, it was just a great ride.
Absolutely.
And you got to make out with Adam Copeland and get paid for it. How cool is that, right?
The perks of my job to be to slap them, to manipulate, to have that authority. I mean, it was a great day at the office every night.
Absolutely. We had another question from one of our great listeners, Richie. He wanted to know about the angle with Dolph Ziggler. Now, who pitched the idea with Dolph Ziggler? Was that Dolph, you, WWE? Like, he was kind of curious on that one because it was such a great angle that you and Dolph had for so long, too. One of the most underrated ones, I think, out there for many, many years.
Man, that's harder. I don't know how Dolph came along. Maybe because he was the next sexy, superstar that was young with the long blonde hair, and again, he was the great, sarcastic wrestler out there. And when they put us together, we really worked well. And so however it worked, we had a lot of fun. And he's such a great guy. And I always think that he's always, underestimated by a lot of people because he could do such great things in that ring. And when I was working with him, they never gave him titles. They kind of teased him a little bit, and we ended up having the title for him, and it was really disappointing for him because he worked so hard. And but now I see that he finally has a title, and he's doing good. So I'm really happy for him.
Yeah, he's one of the he's a great performer for them for decades and decades. Probably one of the, in my opinion, one of the more undervalued ones through time for sure.
Yeah.
Rob, I'll let you go next, Rob.
Um, we mentioned off air. My wife is a big fan of yours. She found you a big inspiration after Eddie passed to have to take care of your family and have to get into business. And I mean, you knew about it with Eddie, and it's not like you were a newcomer to it, but you still yourself, other than that one angle with Eddie and Ray, you didn't know much about being a performer. So how nervous were you when you first, after Eddie passed, when you had to go on your own and do your own thing? I know you said you had Teddy there to help you out, and you probably had a lot of other people, but it still had to be a little nerve wracking in front of all those people. Not used to being a performer.
Yeah, I talk about this in my autobiography that people probably think, when I walked in there, I was like a stranger, but this was actually my family and friends that I knew for years.
Right.
So being able to go in the ring and, everyone's like, hey, don't worry, I'm right there with you. At first, I needed a lot of guidance and to kind of know that I had people on each side. I was like, okay, I can do this. And then after a while, I was standing on my own, and I was confident. But to see these people that were just friends in the backstage and go to dinner and have a drink, not a big deal. But here I am working with them on live TV, and my main concern was to give them my 100% without screwing up anything and doing my part. So not only were they my friends, but first I respected them at their craft of who they were and the character that they held in the WWE. So that was something that was a lot of pressure for me because I didn't want to screw anything up on my part. But yeah, it was just, I respected them at who they were first, and and then my family second. So it brought me to just managed a lot of gratitude, that I was able to work with them as, inside the ring.
And your daughter Shaw wanted to carry on that tradition, and is she still in the business, or did she give it up? I know she was in the developmental system for a while, but I haven't really followed her since.
Right. So she was in FCW back then, when it took the place of NXT. She fell and hurt her neck, so she's not able to wrestle.
I gotcha. Okay.
And I was on the road, and they were planning on putting us together as the mother-daughter team, which I thought would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been great.
Yeah, but she doesn't wrestle anymore, but she is a ring announcer for a while, and she did some work with Lucha Underground.
Oh,
so
great.
She still dabbles in it, and she loves the business, but she does wish that she could, have been able to wrestle. But when she goes in the ring, she's got that smart ass, little attitude that Eddie has. And I see Eddie whenever I see her perform, so it's a gift to me. Yeah.
I agree.
That's
Your
awesome.
your other two daughters have aspirations, or they're doing their own thing?
My youngest one, Sherilyn, she's a dancer, so she had no part in being wrestling, so that was okay with me. Yeah. And Eddie's stepdaughter, we don't talk just for legal reasons, but I heard she's well, but I don't know if she's gonna do wrestling or not.
Good.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Now, Vickie, how hard was the ride, from the other side of it there? Because I think this is one of the things that's overlooked a lot of times by people, is that how hard it is on the other side, when Eddie was out there performing for all those years from promotion to promotion, what was that experience like for the spouse, as you are, and, how hard was that? Was it a hard experience, a good experience? What would you, say for people that should really know about that side and how much it takes to be the person at home doing everything?
Yeah, that's a great question because there's so many facets to that, because in my book, I'm trying to be a motivation, inspiration for other women who are single moms or other spouses that are involved in the wrestling business. It's a lonely, life. And Eddie's mom is the one who had many talks with me to make sure that I wanted to be a part of this business, because she was the wife, the sister, the mother, and anything she could do, she played that title. And she told me, it's going to be a very lonely business where, you're going to be at home with the kids, and he's going to miss birthday parties and Christmas and Thanksgiving. And at first I was like, okay, here, Linda, it's fine. I can do this. But then you start getting into the being married, and I'm like, wow, she was really right that it is lonely. But, with my faith with God, and Eddie was very, supportive, and the girls understood the schedule. So we just kind of took it as each week as it came, because it was always different. I would give my advice, and I can kind of tell when I meet other spouses of wrestlers of who's strong and who can't handle it. And it takes a strong lady or a man, to be on the other side of it to support the wrestler that's on the road. Because you do take care of the house and the bills and the emotional support for the wrestler. And, and then in the same time, you have to find your own identity to have your own work. And that's something I wasn't able to do. I missed out on that. So I think when Eddie passed, I made sure that I was finding my own identity. And that was something that I lost for a long time.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
you're one of the few people to be on both sides, actually, to be, left at home when your husband goes to work like that, and then you yourself had to go do the very same thing. So, how was it to be on the road after that and get a taste of what Eddie went through?
I think it was harder because I didn't have anyone at home except my two girls and a nanny.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that other spouse or partner, to help me out, and things that I needed. So that was the other struggle. It was hard because my girls would have school events, or there'd be stuff going on, and I couldn't just call in and say, I'm not going to go to work today. So it helped me be a stronger woman and find a lot of strength and courage I didn't think I had inside. And also I give a lot of credit to my daughters, because they were strong and they knew the schedule. So when we talked about it, they were like, oh yeah, you're going to be gone from like, Thursday to Tuesday. Okay, mom, this is what dad did. And so I think they just kind of fell into place, and they were older. So with high school and junior high, it kept them busy, and they were in a lot of things. So I think that I got smart into signing them up for everything they wanted. So they were always somewhere. They weren't just sitting at home. But I had great nannies that took care of my girls. So they were a great help as well.
Did that give you a sign of respect for what the wrestlers and everybody has to go through once you did it yourself?
Respect to the other wrestlers?
Yeah, I mean, did he respect like how much of a sacrifice it was for them to leave, knowing that side of it?
Yeah, you learn a different respect for it, because it's easy to be at home for me, being the housewife and the mom, because I'm very organized, so I had everything, from the kids to the lunches to Eddie's flights to packing. I mean, I was a very big organizer, so, and then to go and try and have that respect, you kind of have to feel for other people that can't get their act together. So you want to lend advice. You want to say, hey, I did it this way. And so I think it was about helping each other out, because there's a lot of things that, traveling, it was very different for me. Back then we had MapQuest when I was traveling.
Yeah.
Read a paper, print out all the directions. And then came the GPS, the Garmin GPS, which was a piece of crap, which always so it was just a lot of people. My nephew Chava was such a sweetheart. I call him like, I don't know where this hotel's at, or how do we do this, or where do we rent the car, or sometimes they flew us to an airport and we had to drive 3 hours. So he'd call and say, hey, don't forget, it's a 3-hour drive, when you land. So those people in my life really helped me learn the other side of how to stay above water.
Absolutely. Yep. I could say, Vickie, I understand too for a little bit of where you're coming from on it. I was in the military for 12 years. My wife, God bless her, she spent all that time, home with the kids, going to college, working too. And then she finally got her dreams and stuff, and went on, did her things. And I kind of felt what it was like the last few years to be I do all the cooking in the house. I got 2 jobs too, between the
Uh,
podcasting and my regular one. But she's doing her thing now. It's her time. I know what she was feeling. I'm like, honey, what do you want for dinner tonight? Chicken? You want chicken and biscuits? You got it. Here we go. It's a tough.
oh, that
to
sounds
see both-
good.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it does.
We got homemade chicken soup tonight, Vickie. So if you're in the
Nice.
neighborhood in New York, you always come by the Wangland house. We'd more than happy to have you over for dinner. I think I'm a really good cook now. So, but you mentioned some just great perspectives there, Vickie. I mean, because you got the opportunity to see it from both sides of the fence, which not everybody does, and that's it's such an amazing thing to get and to see that perspective on it. Now, which it's kind of the hard part of it is. Did you prefer a certain side? Did you like being on the road? Did you like being home more? Which kind of did you prefer more? Do you think, if you could look at it, or did you like them both equally? Maybe.
It was very different roles. I was fine being at home as a housewife and, a mom, because me and Eddie discussed this before he even started traveling, the long schedule. He wanted to make sure that I was going to be okay. And there was times I tried to go to school or to get a job, and it's very difficult with the wrestling schedule. And
Mhm.
of course, our first priority was, being there for the girls where they needed me. But on the other side, I got to feel what fame was like, and
Mhm.
the television, the lights, and people wanting my autograph. I'm like, me, I'd be looking around like, are you sure there's someone over here? So it was fun. I mean, who can deny, going through a crowd and people are rocking your car, and I'm like, oh my God, they're rocking my car. Like, I'm gonna die. So it was, but I was very safe. I mean, I had great friends that, Tamina Snuka was my road partner, and we shared hotel rooms, and so we took care of each other. So to experience the fame and the road life, I had some good people to enjoy it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I went
Now,
to WrestleMania. Sorry, John, I mean interrupt you. I went to WrestleMania 27 in Atlanta a few years ago, and I believe you were there for Access. And it's
Yeah.
amazing of your fan base. There's so many people that were there to see you, and it's like, does that still take getting used to when you do appearances and all that? Like you said,
No.
when you
No,
yeah.
Rob. No, I mean, you hope that people are going to come see you. Now that I'm out of, a promotion, I'm just doing Comic Cons, and I do wrestling promotions. Like, I'll be the guest general manager, and to see people come and see me, I still get taken back a little bit, because, they're still following me and they still want to meet me. And so those are huge blessings that I never take for granted, because Eddie taught me that, each fan is their own fan. And he always respected everyone, whether it was a girl, a guy, a kid. And so he always took time, even though I thought I was being impatient, I'm like, come on, let's go. And he would take his time, and he taught me how to do that for the fans. So I think that God really was working through me, to kind of prepare me, which I didn't think that was going to be, that was going on. But I learned to love the fans and to respect them. Some are loony, some are a little,
oh
angry,
yeah.
Yeah.
and they're some are feisty, but all in all, I still try and do my part, and say hello to them and be hospitable when I can. But yeah, it's just taking each day as it comes and not taking tomorrow for granted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Eddie was, I'll tell you this, Vickie, and I can remember this when I was younger. I'm almost 40 now, so it's when I was I think it was about 14 or 15, I had the opportunity to meet Eddie, and I'd have to say there was another wrestler, PCO, who I remember the same story with, that did this when I was a kid as a fan, and PCO was so wonderful to me when other people dissed some of the fans, walked by him, didn't do it, and I always remember that. I told him that story when we had him on the show, and we become friends through the process of it, things, and he was just blown away by it. But I remember Eddie was so kind when we met him. And he sat with a bunch of kids. We were a bunch of snot-nosed little kids, teenagers that just loved Eddie Guerrero. And he sat down with us for like 5 minutes when he probably wanted to go home and go to sleep after a show. And man, I wish the flood here and that was in my house that took out all of our memorabilia, because I had everything in the boxes, all my pictures,
God.
everything that we had growing up just got taken away in this flood that we had in 2011. And I wish I still had them because I remember the picture that we took with Eddie, and he was so cool. Like I still think about it to this day. I can remember it. And he just took the time with us to just as kids talk to us. And he was such a classy person. And we never forgot it. We still, as they're all my friends to this day still that were in that picture with me, with Jeff and my other friend that was in it. And Jeff and I do some stuff on the show together still. And we remember that moment because it was just so cool to us. And it's so cool to hear that. And I've always heard the same about you, that you were just the nicest person out there, just so inviting to the fans and at all the Comic Cons and the festivals. And I mean, you could just see it with you. And your show is fantastic. Your podcast.
I'm trying.
You're doing great. You and Jerry are doing great on there.
Guys.
Oh, no. Come on. No, you guys are fantastic. How'd you get into podcasting?
Just, my co-host Jerry Strauss, presented me with the idea, that he goes, do you want to put something else on your schedule? And I'm like, well, like what? He's like, how about a podcast? And I always love podcasts. I love, interviewing. I love the whole concept of it. And I listen to them like when I'm on my walks or whatever, on my audition drives. I love podcasts because that keeps the time going. But I started getting into it and doing the research and seeing how it all works together. And I fell in love with it. So I'm on my week 4, but it took like a month before that, to get everything together. I like it. And I have so much respect for you guys because y'all have been doing this for years and months, so I'm just getting a taste of it. And it's such a great world.
Yeah, and you guys had a great last episode with the Lunder Blaze, Medusa,
Oh, thank you.
Deborah Maselli, however everybody wants to say it. God, that was a great episode. I'm 3/4 of the way through. I was listening to my ride back from work, finishing up. Great episode, just tremendous.
She talked a lot. She was never people. I'm sure y'all know that some people you have to keep like pulling stuff out of them to talk, but she led the whole show, so I just sat back and let her talk.
Yeah, she's been podcasting for a bit now too. I see.
Yeah. But, something you said about Eddie, that even, through his demons and alcohol issues, he was such a compassionate guy, and if you saw like a kid or a homeless man on the street, he was the first one to stop, and give whatever it is they needed, and sometimes he would be giving too much, but he's like, that's between them and God, and he was very patient with a lot of people, and, you didn't want to piss him off because he had a great temper too. I mean, but, he was just, he was a fun loving guy, sarcastic, cheater at games. He loved to win, and he was in a bad mood when he didn't. So just like every other Mexican, describes this perfectly.
Who were some of Eddie's favorite people that he would always express like getting into the ring with, and some of like anybody that he really loved working with the most? I'm sure there was a million, but anybody that you can remember?
He loved Chris Benoit. That was one of his favorites. Rey Mysterio, Dean Malenko was a great one. I mean, they had some tremendous matches in Japan. There was Chris Jericho. He loved working with Dave Bautista. I mean, the list goes on and on. But, when you get the Mexican wrestlers and Japan wrestlers that work together, their matches are just uncomprehendable. I mean, they just bring this, like they're dancing, around each other. And it's just very different than what you see in the States.
It's like, it's amazing to watch because they make it look so easy. And it's like, my gosh, what they're doing there is so complicated and hard. It's like, I couldn't fathom to imagine to do that stuff that they would do in there. And I remember seeing like 22 years ago today, I saw this week, was when they introduced the Luchadors on Nitro for the first time, really bringing them out there, and Eddie's first match out there. And I remember people watching it, like we saw it, like I had seen Eddie before,
Was it that long ago? Wow.
Yeah.
I'm old, guys.
I had seen this stuff before, and I remember watching it because we used to tape trade back in the day, before all the streaming. I have an 18-year-old son now and a 10-year-old daughter, Vickie, and I try to tell them about tape trading and VHSs and all that stuff.
They have no idea.
They have no idea. And they're like, you can't just, my daughter's like, you can't stream it? What do you mean you can't stream it? And I said, no, we would get like VHS. What's a VHS? And I'm like, well,
that's so funny.
Oh boy.
I know, but man, it was amazing. It was just amazing to see what they could do. It was so graceful and just tremendous. I want to ask one last question, and then I'll let Rob, because I know you got just a couple minutes left. Because
I'm good.
Yeah. What about Santino Marella? What was it like to work with Santino? Because that was one of my favorite gimmicks that you guys were doing there with Miss Santino and everything. Just all the stuff. What was it like working with him? He's just a character.
he's incredible with the talent that he has. Not only was it Santino that I fell in love with, but when he introduced his sister Santina that was coming into the ring, and he would just change, he would just transform into this other person like in an instant. And he was working with Beth Phoenix, and then of course I fought for him for Miss WrestleMania, and then we had the hog pin match, which was horrible, and it stunk so bad because the hogs just kept shitting all over the place. It was so bad. But he was just a joy to work with, and I saw him. I see him a couple of times in Comic Cons and different stuff going on, and now he has a family, and it's just great to see how after wrestling, everyone just has their families and they're really enjoying what they want to do in life. So that's I'm really happy for him. But what a character! So funny, and the Cobra, and just he had so many facets of his character. It was always something different every night, and that's what a true superstar was, because he just kept reinventing himself, and being so creative with all his accents and his faces, and he had me laughing. I always had to like watch myself because I had to be the straight face, no expression, and sometimes I was just gonna lose my stuff out there.
Gotta love it. I'm telling you. I don't know if I could be able to hold some of it in because it was just some comical stuff.
Yeah.
Rob?
Yeah, my wife actually want to know when you first got into it and you see all these younger women that are working there, and you come from home and you're a mom, you're not in ring shape. She wants to know, did you feel awkward or self-conscious about getting out on camera and getting in the ring?
Oh, it wasn't so much. Well, tell her thank you, because that's a big part of my book.
Mhm.
Because the women, I loved all the women in the locker room, but these women were beautiful. Size -3 pants. Long blonde
Yeah.
hair, and I came in. As I think after Eddie, a year after Eddie passed. I wasn't expecting to go to work there. So
Yeah.
I was an emotional eater, and I talk about that in my book, where me and the girls just ate, and you were depressed. I
Yeah.
was not, I hated life, and things were really difficult. And so when they called me, I just went in there because I'm like, look, this is me. I'm not gonna, I can't just go crash diet for 30 pounds and be ready to go. Like, if they want me, this is who it's gonna be. But going in the locker room, it's a very different world in there, because we're dressing, and I always dress in the stalls because I didn't feel confident about myself.
Yeah.
And but the women, they were my good friends. They were just really funny ladies who wanted to wrestle and show their talent on TV. But me, I was like, oh my God, do you see her? Like, I would just stare at these women going, how's that even possible? Have this body that you do. But then I started changing my eating habits, and I started wanting to feel and look better for myself. But it's very emotional. It's
Mhm.
very my self-esteem was very low, and you get into a locker room with 20 other women who are size 0, and they're not a 10, they're like a 20, to me, and they have the long blonde hair and just beautiful. So it makes you have a reality check, like, what are the things I can do to make myself better?
Yeah.
But, I had to learn to love myself first, and it took a long transformation of, gosh, maybe 5 or 6 years to really find out where I fit in the locker room. But I talk about my book that it wasn't about my looks that got me my talent for my character. It was my talent that I showed from within.
That's right.
So while the women were in their locker room sitting for nights after night doing nothing, I was the one that was on the show 5 or 6 times. So I try and tell girls and women that I meet that it's not about how you look or the hair you have or the clothes you buy or the labels you buy.
Yep.
It's what comes from within that's going to make you successful.
And you had a lot of courage and a lot of spunk to go out there. I mean, I give you all the credit in the world. It's not an easy business to begin with to get into,
Yeah.
and the fact that you were able to perform at the level that you did and get over just
Thank
shows how great you did. Did you think you had it in you?
Well, every woman has a biatch inside them.
Right, right.
It wasn't hard to dig in and find where your anger and your bitchiness is. But it did take a lot because they tried me as a baby, And I didn't like being a baby character. I thought it was boring, and you have to keep the fans happy. And I love what Eddie did, getting the crowd and, going from happy to mad to pissed off, and then go back to, making them like, well, maybe he is telling the truth. I love that whole emotional roller coaster that he did. So for me to have that opportunity to do the same, I loved being a heel. So, to have that anger and to yell and to slap people, yeah, I was good with it.
I mean,
Absolutely.
there was heel heat, there was go away heat, but then there was Vickie heat, and not many people had Vickie heat. You were a nuclear heat getter. It's from the first "excuse me" that you heard, the crowd would instantly boo. That's got to make you feel good, right?
It does, it always made me feel good when Vince McMahon would tell me, go wake up the crowd, Guerrero,
I love it. I love it. That's great.
and they used to always have me say, excuse me, from the back before I even showed up on the stage. Yep. And I loved it. I loved the adrenaline. I loved, surprising the crowd. And I loved that 2 or 3 times I blew out the speakers in the TV truck because I was yelling so loud. And so those are the things that I always put 100% into it. And to have the fans hate me so much. Where were your family members when I needed friends back then? Because I had no one.
Right. I mean, it's. Oh, sorry. I mean, just to follow up on that one more thing. I mean, it's hard. I mean, you obviously have the sympathy from your husband passing, so the fans are automatically going to be on your side. To get them to hate you, that just shows how great you were. Honestly, it's hard to do.
Well, I think they loved me. The fans did love me because I was representing Eddie and being a friend to Ray. But of course, when the writers started turning me against, Ray and Chris and, Chris Jericho, now they hated me because now I was making out with Edge on the show. Now I'm cheating on Eddie. And I'm like, wait, how am I cheating on Eddie? But the fans couldn't take that from that reality to, the fiction, role I was playing. So we used it. They're like, if you want to be a bad guy and you want to keep doing this heat, are you comfortable? I'm like, hell yeah, let's do this. So I took advantage of it and I went with it. So I'm glad I stuck with it.
That's awesome.
Now you coming out at the Royal Rumble, the big Royal Rumble that they're having there, the Women's Royal Rumble, and then here it is. I believe it was number 16, if I remember correctly, something like that.
Yeah.
Was it 16? Okay, I remember. I got a pretty good memory to a lot of things. And then I'm like, number 16, and then you just hear, "Excuse me!" And everybody in the crowd just woke right, like you said, like Vince said, go wake them up, Guerrero. Yeah. Everybody woke up, and you just tore into all the women that were in the ring. And there was history with some of the women in the ring there that you guys
Michelle McCool.
Oh, it was such a special moment. Yeah. What was that like getting in for the Royal Rumble there, Vickie, and getting to be a part of it there?
They told me in November, if they wanted to be in it, and they told me what weekend to, to block off, and they said you can't say anything, which I knew how it worked. You're a surprise guest, you can't say anything. But I was probably more scared than I ever had been, going into the Royal Rumble than any other of my 10 years, because I just didn't want to screw it up my last time out
there. You nailed it.
But, just to hear the crowd, and feel that love that they welcomed me with, it was a lot of fun. And to have Michelle McCool in there was perfect because, she was my locker buddy for many years. And then to work with Carmella and hit her with the, the Money in the Bank, briefcase. Mm-hmm. And all the girls we had so much fun that weekend. It was like a big reunion of meeting new girls and seeing our old friends. And we just it was a great party all weekend.
Oh, that's awesome. Vickie, you've been so gracious with your time. Tell everybody, if you don't mind, some things you got going on, some things you want to put out there. I know you got your book, your podcast, a million other things, I'm sure. Whatever you'd like to put out there, Vickie.
Yeah, so I'll be in New York in about 3 weeks, and we're going to sell my book to a publishing company.
Awesome.
And have a great team with that. And I'm doing the Excuse Me podcast. And I volunteer at the Houston SPCA. And I work with the Salvation Army in San Antonio, Texas. So I have a lot of little things going on, and I'm acting too. So anyone that wants to hire me, please hire me. I'll be the murder mistress, whatever you want.
Where are you acting at? What are you doing right now with this?
I'm represented by Page Parks Agency here in Houston. And I'm doing another, I take classes from Next Level Agency here. And so I'm trying to broaden my horizons. I just got signed on with Prestige Talent Management, and they're going to take me to LA and do some agencies there. But I would love to do a sitcom or a film or a TV series. And I love acting. I had a taste of it with WWE, and I've always wanted to just expand that. So that's what I'm doing too.
That's awesome. And you're very active. Are you very active on social media? I know you have Twitter.
Yeah,
You
Twitter
know
at Vickie
everything.
Guerrero. Yeah, and Instagram Guerrero_Vickie, and then I have my Excuse Me podcast. You can find on Google, Spotify, Apple, and Podbean.
It is a great podcast. As a podcaster, I got to put it out. Vickie's podcast is awesome. Her and Jerry have a great dynamic. Jerry's a very talented guy,
Yes.
and just really enjoy the show, Vickie. And just we
Thank
can't thank you enough for coming on the show. If there's ever anything we can help out with you guys in any way, please just let us know, and we'd be more than happy to assist you guys in any way with anything.
Any feedback, let me know, guys, what I'm doing wrong.
You got it, everybody. So, Vickie, once again, thank you so much for joining Wrestling with Reality and Rad Turtles today. And we will definitely, hopefully, have you on again in the near future.
Thank you, guys. Much success to y'all.
Thanks, Vickie. Appreciate it.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you again so much for your time.
Oh,
Can I ask you one favor?
Yeah.
Because it'll just make my son and wife's day to do it. Could you give me an excuse me for the show? Just say, excuse me, you're listening to the Reality Check Podcast Network.
Reality Check Podcast Network?
Yep.
Well, that's a tongue twister.
Yep, it is.
Reality Check Podcast Network.
My son picked the name out, so it was he helped pick the name out there, so that's kind of his thing.
Reality Check Podcast Network.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Hey everyone, this is Vickie Guerrero, and you're listening to the
We do it too. Don't worry about it.
Well, I'll make it easier. You want to just say Wrestling with with Rob and John on
Wrestling with Rob and John. Okay.
Yep. Let's say just you're listening to Wrestling with Reality with Rob and John.
Wrestling with Reality.
Yep.
Hey everyone, this is Vickie Guerrero, and you're listening to Wrestling with Reality with Rob and John. Stay tuned and watch for some great podcasts coming up. And this is you. Oh, sorry, guys.
You're fine, Vickie.
Wrestling with Reality. This is worse than going on live TV. Hey everyone, this is Vickie Guerrero, and you're listening to Wrestling with Reality with Rob and John. Excuse me!
Perfect. Couldn't have done any better than myself.
Oh my God, Vickie, you are the best.
Thank you very much, Vickie.
Such a pleasure. Thank you. If we can ever help out you guys in any way, you just let us know. We're more than willing. Anytime, if you guys need anything, you let us know.
Same here. God bless you guys.
Yeah, God bless, Vickie. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.